I am here honoring what was or is Duwamish land, and I listen with my hands. To begin the story on when you're listening was profoundly, how did listening profoundly change your life? My first thought comes to understanding the human body, the form, what we're housed in, considering as our vessel. Um, Feeling how tonicity changes within the strands of our muscles, which is almost conducting how our bodies move and communicate with itself, and in turn, how that communication leads to the outside world. My first story would be when I first learned to listen to the human form through my hands as a practitioner, and understanding how we store our emotions, our grief, our happiness, our sadness within our muscles, our bones, our blood, ancestrally. And once something is identified or recognized, feeling that tone change, almost like the strings of a guitar, loosening or even a tightening, depending on what's recalled. Understanding that the body has a language that is not unseen. It's actually very predominant in our face and in our words, but we are often blinded by that with facade or hiding under something, but the body never really lies. And that was something that I found comforting and also scary when I discovered it. The comfort lies within knowing that even when someone can't tell me that they're in pain, their body will always let me know where and when, and even sometimes why. The fear comes in when you consider yourself responsible for that pain as a practitioner, thinking that it's your duty to be able to find the right string, the right chord to pluck. But I was profoundly changed knowing that we are conduits for these processes and for these journeys. We're here to play witness, and what we can do for each other is just listen, listening to our inner children, listening to the patterns that we have both retained within our bodies, as well as when they release, being there for those celebrations on letting go. Um, it profoundly changed my life because it showed me how important celebration is, how important listening is, and most importantly to me, how important community is. To be able to have someone there to listen and also to witness. And then when those times become hard, to celebrate. Thank you.
My name is Mosen, like Moses with an N. I listen with my heart, centered around compassion. And the story that has changed my life, it's more than a personal story. It's more of a story between two nations. In order to connect you with this story, perhaps I can start from my childhood. I am a Palestinian refugee. I was born and raised in a refugee camp. A refugee camp that is about a quarter of kilometer square or 63 acres with 10,000 people. As a third generation, I witnessed a great deal of fear and suffering as much as love and compassion there. But now I would like to chat and share with you the suffering part, the painful part, because it has a deep connection to the story that I want to deliver and my realization in this world. When I was 7 years old, I lived without my mother. At the age of 8, I lost my only brother, who was perished in my own arms, and had to bury him. At the age of 10, I saw my best friend, who was 12 years old, getting shot in front of me, a few feet away from me, by an Israeli soldier, and had to bury that friend as well. At the age of 11, I witnessed my uncle who get assassinated, 3 bullets, 1 in the shoulder and 2 in the head, also by the Israeli army on September 12, 2001. That's after September 11, 2001. And it happened to be my birthday, my 11th birthday. At the age of 12, I witnessed explosions that had shaken every atom of my body as a little kid. Heard the explosions, saw the fires, and went to the location to collect people's bodies shattered around the place, peeling their skin off the walls and honoring their body by putting them inside of plastic bags. At the age of 15, I was shot in my leg. Now you see this. Probably you would have an understanding why a Palestinian refugee, a little kid, would grow up very angry about this world, wanted to revenge, was very hurt. But this is not the story that I would like to tell. This is a story of a whole nation. The story that I would like to tell that started about 7 years ago when I came to the United States. Or I saw the Israelis and Jews as enemies who wanted to take my land, who hurt me and hurt my people, who took my beloved ones away, who scared me and created my trauma. But when I came to the United States, I found myself connecting with people from different backgrounds. And among those different backgrounds, I connected with Jews and Israelis. For the first time in my life, I didn't see them as enemies. I saw them as humans. I paid attention to their stories. I heard theirs and I shared mine. And after listening a lot and sharing a lot, I came to a realization that there is no enemy. The idea of an enemy is a human made. And that if we connect heart to heart, eye to eye, open our hearts, and see each other as human beings, we can relate to each other's stories. And the idea of a victim no longer would exist, because even my oppressor was a victim at some point, and this is a transferred energy. And the only way to break through it is by listening and paying attention and loving each other. This is the story has changed my life. And this is the story that keeps me aligned with my path moving forward, connecting with the human beings with a great empathy, and seeing the oppressor as an oppressed person, trying to understand that background. I am truly honored to share my story with you, and I believe this circle of sharing stories heart to heart is a way where we can become immortal, because now you have part of my story, I have part of your story. Thank you.
I'm Lorenzo, and I live on the land of the Taino people. The Taino were the first inhabitants of what became Puerto Rico that was colonized by Spain, who also brought enslaved Africans to work here. And I listen with my ancestors. I listen with my ancestors, and I do this often with my father. Every 2 years, my father and I travel together to Georgia to visit the land where our ancestors built and cropped and harvested, a place called Lawrence Hill, a plantation that my people built in 1834 against their will, against fear, punishment. A lot of tragedy happened to my ancestors in slavery, and also a lot of resilience and resistance that came with that. But that's not the story I want to tell about the ancestors with my father. But on the way to these plantations, my father drove me to this raggedy motel, and the pavement was cracked, it was bumpy, ashy, and he parked in front of motel room number 8. My father turned off the ignition of his truck and put his hands on his lap, and he told me these words: "Son, this is where me and your mama made you." When my father said, "This is the place where me and my mama made you," I sunk in my seat. I didn't know what to say. I was a bit embarrassed, but I did not know why my dad wanted to tell me the place where I was conceived. He continued to tell me, "This is the place where your mom and I could go to be together." We were high school sweethearts. She was the sexiest girl in school. She also had hairy legs, and I loved all the hairs on her legs. I sink in my chair even tighter, feeling very uncomfortable. And my dad told me, "It was so beautiful. Your mom was the most beautiful girl I ever seen." He continued to say that your mama and I lived around the corner. He pointed his hand to a neighborhood. He asked me, "Do I want to go see it?" And I said, "Yeah." So he started the car with a truck. In less than 30 seconds, we parked in front of the home where my dad grew up with his mother and grandfather and siblings. And then he drove around the block and showed me it's an empty lot. And this empty lot was where my mom lived with her family, but the house no longer exists. Then we drove back to the motel. He parked in front of motel room number 8. He said, "Son, you're my firstborn. I will never forget when you came into my life when your mama told me she was pregnant." I asked my father, "Were you nervous? You were only 17." And he told me, "I was a little bit nervous, but at least you get to know who I am because I never knew my own father." My father continued to tell me that he dreamed about me during my mom's pregnancy. He wondered what I would look like, what I would smell like, if I looked like him. And when I came into the world, he was very happy. He dropped out of high school and worked for the Pepsi Cola company full time with my mom and his baby boy. I asked my father some open ended questions. But what I learned from my father is at the age of 64, he was ready to talk about his sex life with me. I never imagined my dad would tell me his sexual history, but it was about me. And the way he told his sex story was beautiful. I never imagined my own father would be that way with me. He was always hard, stubborn, mean in a way, scary. But on that day, my father showed me that he can tell his oldest son about a beautiful event in his life between him and my mom when they were kids, and that I was the delight of his world, in which he called me the apple of his eye. So, in final words, I would say, I have learned that I can be that way with my own son. He's 11. And I can't wait to tell him some stories when he's old enough. But I hope I have the grace and the beauty and the imagery that my father shared with me.
My name is Kimberly Holloway, and I am on the land of the traditional land of the Duwamish people, which is now Seattle. I listen with my body, and I feel like growing up, I learned to listen to everyone else and everyone else's bodies and everyone else's messages and words and decisions. And I learned pretty successfully to not listen to my own body and emotions and being and desires and wants. So after I started moving my body and dancing at a very young age, and I think that was a way to connect with my own body in this other context of listening to everyone else all the time. And it was safe because there were rules and guidelines and someone telling you what to do and all of these things. But I think that as I grew older, I feel like one of the big listening things that profoundly changed my life was just learning how to listen to my own body and the emotions that flow. And that sort of has been a process over time, slowly but surely. And I'm still learning this listening. But yeah, I think I would like to sort of tell the rest of this story with my listening body, because that's what I'm gonna do. So if you really want, you can put music on in your space, but this is listening with breath. And listening to the air. And then there's so much time of listening to the different feelings and where they're stuck or not stuck. And then how do you go past the edges? And listening to let the outside in, but also letting the inside flow out. one of the first times I learned to listen to my body. Not the first, but kind of big moment of listening. I learned that when I feel stuck and still and not moving at all, it's usually because I'm angry. So if I don't move and I don't think and I don't do anything at all, I learned I was actually angry. So then slowly, I've taught my body how to let go of some of those things and breathe. Thanks.